Hello. How's it going?
Very good. How are you?
I am Manisha, the founder of Modulo. If you haven't heard of us, we are a directory and marketplace for homeschooling resources. And I am here with my good friend and collaborator, Rohan Mahimkar, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of Prodigy Game. And we have been talking about math learning for a long time. And now, with the growth of the homeschooling population, I think Rohan and I have been talking more about homeschooling and how Prodigy is uniquely positioned to serve homeschoolers. And so, we're really excited to have this workshop. You all were really generous in sharing your challenges in teaching math to your kids. And so I'm going to just kind of dive in and share some of what I've learned about homeschooling math. And then Rohan is going to talk a little bit about some of the features in Prodigy that you can use to support your child in learning math. And you're just going to have a lot of time for Q&A. So without further ado, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my background and how I discovered Prodigy. I got my start as a tutor in New York City, and my specialty was test prep. So I taught kids all over the city, from the children of some of the wealthiest CEOs in Manhattan to also in struggling public schools. And I was really, really good at getting kids from a 10% on their SAT to a 95% or a 99% on their SAT. And the funny thing about this special skill I had is that I was pretty terrible at taking tests. When I was in middle school and high school, I often underperformed. I had a lot of confusion and friction around the fact that I seemed to be doing really well in school, but just couldn't get my head around these standardized tests. Even in English language arts, which I thought was my strong suit, I would consistently choose the wrong answer in multiple choice questions. And so the reason I'm sharing this is because I think that the reason I was such an excellent tutor is because I actually had a lot of difficulty in this area. And there's a teacher of mine who used to say, we heal where we're wounded. And so if there's anything that you take away from this workshop, I want it to be that you absolutely have the capacity to teach your child math. And in fact, your own challenges in math make you a better teacher than someone who is just naturally gifted at math, because you can empathize more strongly with their challenges and you can learn along with your child. So it's a great gift. So I wanted to just start off by kind of going over some of the techniques I've learned for homeschooling math over the last 5 to 10 years. I've done a deep dive in some of the biggest homeschooling groups and kind of really distilled some of the basic principles that tend to work well for parents overall. And then I wanted to go through some of your specific questions, especially how to teach math if you don't consider yourself good at it. Gifted and advanced math, especially, that kind of goes along with, what if I'm not good at math and my kid is really amazing at math? How does this work together? What if I have 2 kids and they're learning at different rates? Just how to get your child to love math, because that everything else kind of unfolds when you can get past that low confidence and anxiety. I want to talk about how to get to that point of deep understanding, because a lot of you expressed in your form that, okay, it's great that they can answer questions, but how do I know that they have a real deep understanding, and how do I draw connections in the real world with math? That seemed really important to you, which is a beautiful intention. And then we're going to talk a little bit about learning differences, especially ADHD, autism, dyscalculia, and dyslexia, and how to navigate those when you're teaching math. And then you had some very specific questions, which we'll also address. So here are the main tenets that I have distilled that are effective for homeschooling math. The first is really getting aligned with your child on the purpose of learning math.